I really do. But it's just so complicated, and he's very, very intelligent. And I'm not saying I'm not intelligent, but some of that stuff is very, very deep. And so I rely on him to teach me that stuff, and then I'll portray it to you guys. If you brought your Bibles tonight, and if not, that's okay. Our scripture tonight is found in Matthew chapter 4, verse 18 through 22. This is my first PowerPoint, so literally ever. No school projects or anything like that, so bear with me. Our scripture is Matthew chapter 4, verse 18 through 22. It says, as Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon called Peter and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. Come, follow me, Jesus said, and I will send you out to fish for people. At once they left their nets and followed him. Going on from there, he saw two other brothers, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. They were in a boat with their father Zebedee, preparing the nets. Jesus called them, and immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. Now, here comes Tyler's teaching to me. Back in the biblical time, the way that the Jews learned, they, from a very small age up until older age, they were taught the scriptures. They memorized it. They weren't just taught like we were in school. They drilled this into their heads. Drilled it. Memorized it. And these kids could recite verses after verses after verses. And as they grew up, then they decided that they also become teachers of the Jewish law and of the Jewish ways of the scriptures. And what they would do, they would go to a teacher and want to follow him. And they would ask him if they could. And this Jewish leader, priest, or whatever they would go to, rabbi, that's what I'm talking about, rabbi, would ask them questions. And the question would be, not necessarily a question, but he would quote a scripture. And these children, at the time, would have to decide whether he was talking about the verse before it or verse after. And then they would recite that one. And they would go back and forth and back and forth. And this rabbi would decide if they were worthy to follow him or not, and to help go out and teach the scriptures. So when these kids would go to this rabbi and say, hey, I want to follow you. Teach me your ways and teach me the ways of the Jewish laws and things like that, this rabbi would say yes or no. So here we have Simon, and Andrew. They become fishermen. Now, they were probably fishermen because when they went to this rabbi and said, I want to follow you, the rabbi said, you're not good enough. You don't really know it quite like I do. And the more I look at Peter, the more I realize I'm a lot like him. And I really like how Peter has excitement. And as he probably went to this rabbi, he's like, nah, you're good, but you're not that good. So stick with your trade. And this trade is what he would have learned from his father, who learned from his father, and that was fishing. So as they were fishing with his brother, they saw a man. This man came to them and said, come follow me. They realized it was Jesus. Jesus had picked them. They didn't go to him and say, we want to follow you. Jesus came to them and said, I want you to follow me. Jesus does the same thing today. It hasn't changed since this time to now. Jesus still comes to you and says, listen, I don't care what the world has said. I want you to follow me. Let's pick teams. All of us have been in this situation, right? Now, I wasn't the best at sports, but I wasn't the worst. But on the playground, you always dreaded being picked last, right? It felt horrible. And even if you weren't picked last, just thinking about it, and I don't know if maybe this is just me, when there was the two captains, I always hoped I got picked as a captain so I didn't have to worry about getting picked. I got to do the picking. But if I didn't get picked as a captain, I got that sick feeling in my stomach. Oh, nice. Sorry about that. Dubstep there for you guys. So I get this sick feeling in my stomach that I was going to get picked last. And I didn't want to get picked last. I realized I wasn't the best, but I didn't want to. The world is kind of the same way. The world is going to pick who does what job. Though you might go to school and you might try to get this job, you might go interview and you might try to get this job, you don't have the final say. You don't get to say, all right, I'm going to get this job, I'm going to get paid this much, I'm going to have this friend, I'm going to drive this car, I'm going to buy this house, I'm going to live here. We don't get to say that. The world says what you're good enough to get, right? Jesus says, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care if you're the last one. I don't care if you can get that job interview. I don't care if you don't have the biggest house. I don't care if you're driving a little Subaru. I'm not making fun of Satan. But Jesus doesn't care. Jesus just wants you to follow him. Jesus just wants you to come be with him. He wants you to follow his ways. He loves you that much. He doesn't care if you're the last little boy sitting on the bench looking all sad because he doesn't get to use his new ball and bat. Jesus wants you to be on his team. Jesus wants you to follow him and let him coach you. Jesus has picked you. He's not demanding we be on his team. He's not this rabbi that comes along and says, all right, you are good enough, so you're going to follow me. Okay? Jesus wants us to be on his team. He asks us. He says, hey, I've got a pretty good thing going over here. I can save you. I can love you. But you don't have to come. This is your choice. And if we decide that we're going to follow Jesus, we have to be willing to leave everything behind. No matter what we're holding on to, no matter if it's thoughts in our head, if it's an actual control thing, if it's a job, if it's a house, if it's a relationship, if it's anything like that, if Jesus calls us to drop it, we have to be ready to drop it. Just like Peter did, just like Andrew did, just like John did. They said, when Jesus says, come follow me, they left their father. Dad, I love you. But if Jesus calls me to leave you and go somewhere else, sorry. We got to be the same way. Sorry, you're sitting right there. You're an example. We have to be willing to leave whatever it is that's hindering us, whatever it is that's going to pull us down, whether it be our father, whether it be our nets, whether it be the fish, whether it be our jobs. These guys left their job. I'm sure they were making money. Probably not a lot, but they were making some money fishing. They had a living. They probably, were in a routine. But Jesus comes along and he says, follow me. Follow me. But you got to leave that behind. Because I got some better thing for you. We have to be quick to decide. And I realize that might sound a little harsh, a little, gotta leave my family and run away. But we all know that the end of the world is not that far away. By no means am I proclaiming it's tomorrow. I'm not going to tell you the date and time. I'm not going to say go empty your bank accounts and do what you want. But you never know if driving home tonight, if you're in an accident, and this was the last chance you had to just let it go and follow Jesus. There was a song that I found on my iPod just yesterday, and I find it kind of funny because I've got 1,700 songs on my iPod. I didn't even know I knew that many songs, but I found this song that apparently I didn't know because I didn't know it was on there. It's called Do You Know? And it is by Audio Adrenaline. I searched it. And it's like this swing, cool song. And it's kind of funny because it talks about, the ways that you could go and you don't know. You could be sitting in your easy chair, and you could just, it's your time and you go. You could be, this one's funny, you could be standing in the 7-Eleven drinking a Slurpee and 747 comes through the roof. You don't know, right? We have no idea. So we have to decide right now. Are we going to follow Jesus, or are we going to drag our feet and not be sure yet? And say, maybe I'll follow him tomorrow. Might not be a tomorrow. We have to realize that in this, I realize I wrote that, but it looks kind of funny now I'm reading it. We have to realize that it's not going to be all rainbows and butterflies. Following Christ isn't easy. Christ told us that. There's going to be trials. There's going to be hard times. There's going to be times when we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know where we're going to end up next week. We don't know where the next paycheck's going to come from. We don't know who's going to accept us into the next job. We don't know. So we have to rely on God. And that's hard. Me and Abby just went through this. It's hard to know what God's going to put the next step, where your foot's going to land next. And we have to realize that even if it's something that doesn't seem that nice, God has a plan for it. God is going to take you places that you can't even imagine. It might be hard, but in the end, our reward is awesome. So why us? I'm pretty sure that Peter and Andrew and James and John were nasty fishing. Just helping Kenny in the garden this afternoon. My hands were nasty. My back was sunburned. Feels good. You get dirty. These guys got dirty. And we as Christians and we as people that want to follow God, we're dirty on our soul. We're dirty in our spirit and in our minds. There's some nasty things that we've done in our past, I'm sure, that have just messed us up. Jesus doesn't care. It doesn't matter to him. He wants to take you and make you whole. He wants to clean you up. I heard someone preach one time, and this might be on the next slide, I'm not positive if I kept it in there. But we as Christians come in, and this deals with the fishing for men. When we go fishing, when you pull the fish in, it's not scaled and clean and ready to eat, is it? No. It's dirty and nasty, and especially if you fish in 10 Mile down in Waynesburg, it's gross, and it smells. And that's kind of the way we are as we come to Christ. We're nasty, we're dirty. We aren't the perfect Christian yet. But Jesus is going to scale us, and he's going to clean us, and he's going to make us what he wants us to be. The world is going to tell us we're not good enough. Satan loves to pull that card. He's pulled it on me many times. You're not good enough. You didn't do it. You're not good enough. And I'm sure you guys have been the same way. And we think in our minds, we're not good enough to be in church. Well, we aren't good enough for people to even see us walk through that door. I've done some bad things. I've done some things in my past. People don't want to see that. People don't want to hear about that. But that's what people can learn from. Is God takes your mistakes and whatever you've done, and he turns it into something that people can learn from. And realize, hey, I'm going through the same thing. There must be an end to this. There must be a light at the end of the tunnel. And that light is Jesus. Jesus says we're exactly what we need, what he needs. He is going to equip us. No, we're not qualified, but he's going to equip us with whatever job he wants us to do. Whether it be ministry, whether it be preaching, whether it be music, whether it be taking a Sunday school class, whether it be babysitting, whether it be cooking, hosting someone at your house, anything like that we can reach God. God is going to take and God is going to make something awesome and beautiful. All right, what's the team rules? Follow his guidance in every aspect of our life. That's tough, right? Because the world wants to make it independent. You do what you want to do to make it happy. You do what makes you feel good. That's not what Jesus wants us to do. He wants us to follow his guidelines. He wants us to follow whatever he has in the scriptures. Have faith that he's going to guide us and protect us as we follow him. That's tough too. Because as human beings, we're taught to plan. We're taught to know what's going to happen next. Jesus doesn't always reveal that step by step by step. Jesus kind of waits sometimes. And I heard it said on Caleb that we say Jesus comes right at the last moment. Jesus owns time. Jesus knows when the right moment is. It might seem like the last moment to us, but Jesus says that's the first moment. That's when it's going to happen. We've got to represent and stand for his truth. There's a lot of lies going on out there. There's a lot of things people are preaching that aren't right. There's a lot of things that people are preaching just because that's what people want to hear. We have to stand for the truth. When people are doing that, we have to realize what's right and what's wrong. We have to stand up for it, whether we're at school, whether at work. When people are doing things that they shouldn't be doing, but yet we see them in church on Sunday morning, talk to them. Hold them accountable. Don't, get in their face and scream at them. But just sit down and talk to them. Just like, hey, listen, this is what we're taught. Do you really think this is what we're supposed to be doing? We've got to stand for his truth. And this is a big one. And this is one that I'm sure we all have a hard time with. Show everyone the love he has shown us. Christ died for us because he loved us so much. So that's a lot of love. I'm pretty sure that the least we can do is go talk to somebody who's sitting by themselves in the cafeteria, or who looks nasty and dirty outside, homeless people that, they don't look like the most appealing person. But God calls us to talk to these people, to love these people. People that no one else wants to be around. Who do you think Jesus hung out with? The tax collectors, the lepers, the prostitutes. Jesus wants us to love these people just as we love everybody sitting in here. Jesus wants us to be there for him, wants us to show us that love. So, are you going to be the next draft pick? Yeah, that's really corny. I realize that. Are you going to be the next draft pick for Team Jesus? Is that a decision you're going to make here tonight if you haven't already? And even maybe you have made it, but you haven't made it final. You haven't really jumped into it. You've said before, yeah, I'll be on Team Jesus. I'll come to church. I'll come to youth group. I'll come to Ignition. I'll, sing the songs. But are you really living like Jesus wants us to? Are you really following the rules of the team? I encourage you this evening that if you aren't, to make that decision tonight. Because as I said, I by no means want to scare anybody into salvation. That's just not how I want to do things. I want that to be between you and God. But we don't know if we're going to make it home. We don't know if we're going to make it to church tomorrow morning. We don't know if we're going to make it here next month. We just don't know. So are you going to live according to the team rules? Are you going to listen to our coach, Jesus? Are you going to follow what he wants us to do? Are we going to love everybody? Not just people that we want to love. Everybody. We got to love everybody. Are we going to stand for his truths? Are we going to stand up to people and say, listen, that is not how I do it. This is not how Jesus wants me to do it. So I want no part of that stuff. Are we going to have faith that God's going to provide and protect? I hope so. If you haven't made that decision tonight, I really encourage you to. If you made it before and you haven't been living up to it, I encourage you to change that tonight. As the band comes forward and we have our last 3 songs, I encourage you guys to make that decision tonight. It's not between me and you. It's not between me, you, and God. It's between you and God. So I ask that as we do these last songs, that you examine yourselves and that you listen to what God has to say tonight.